name is Dasha, and I'm back after a little 3-week mental health and school hiatus because this is my 4th year and it's all online and I'm slowly losing my mind. But I'm back. I had a little break between study sessions and I thought I would come talk about the books I read in the month of September and maybe pre-film a couple more videos to put out if I ever run in the same situation, which I'm sure I will, because I am slowly losing my mind, as I mentioned. But I'm back. It is spooky season, it is sweater weather, I am in the mood, and I'm gonna talk about the books I read in September for Becca's Bookoplathon and outside of Becca's Bookoplathon. So I made a TBR for Becca's Bookoplathon. I will link it right up here. You can go check it out and then come back to this one if you want to kind of see what my roles were and what the prompts are and all of that. But I will also obviously talk about those here, and I will talk about the books that I did not manage to get to at the end of the video. So if you're just here to get some opinions on books, that's cool. So as usual, I'm gonna go from my least favorite to my favorite, just to end on a good note. I read 6 books in September, which has been my average lately, and I'm actually pretty surprised because I thought that I was like slowly losing my mind. I didn't really have time for myself because I was just kind of constantly go with school. But I actually managed to read 6 books, which for me is pretty freaking impressive. So I'm gonna start with one that was not on my TBR for Becca's Bookoplathon, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This is a thriller/horror novella that just got a Netflix movie adaptation, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't watched it yet, but I plan to. And this is super short. I read it in an hour and a half. So the only thing I'll say about this is it's basically a couple on the way to the guy's parents' house, and they're just going for dinner there, and it kind of goes downhill from there. The girl in the car is kind of thinking that she might want to end the relationship, and anyways, it goes downhill from there. I straight up could not rate this. I still have not thought of a rating. I feel like it is one of those books that I really need to kind of maybe stew in a little bit or even reread. Also, this was not a Becca's Bookoplathon pick. I don't know if I said that. I had a hold at the library and it came in all of a sudden. So I was like, oh, it's super quick. I'll sit down and read it. So when I finished this, I just like laid there for a few minutes and I had to go watch videos on YouTube because I wasn't sure I even understood the ending. So that's part of the reason I can't really rate it, is because I'm not even sure I fully comprehend all the nuance in the book. One of the videos I watched also compared it to the movie, and apparently the movie kind of handles things a little bit differently, so I'd rather maybe watch the movie as well. I don't know, this is one of those really weird ones where it's super short, so I can't really say anything without giving it away. And I also have not fully formulated an opinion, which I know is like a really shitty way to start a wrap up, but it's just one of those really weird, difficult ones that I can't quite put into words how I felt about it. It was very well written, I can say that, and it was quite interesting and gripping. It got me, I got through it very quickly right away. I didn't want to put it down, but the ending was just out of my level of intellect, I think. I don't know. It's one of those you have to read for yourself and see what's up, because I don't think I can properly explain it. The next book I read was for Becca's Bookoplathon. It was for the prompt to read a middle grade, and so I read The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Yes, I'll say it again. I didn't read this growing up. Well, I tried. I read it when I was maybe in middle school, so in like 7th, 8th grade, and I didn't like it, but I didn't remember a single thing or why I didn't like it. I can tell you why. I think it was because I found it juvenile, but I'm still gonna consider this first read, but upon first read, I actually really freaking enjoyed it. This got a low 4 stars for me. I thought it was really well done, and I think what helped too was, as a more critical reader, I'm able to sit there and say, this book was not meant for me, so I have to kind of examine it from the point of view of a middle grader and, how someone in that age would perceive it and how it would come across to someone of that age. And what I found was that it was just really beautiful. So I thought that obviously the educating kids about like Greek mythology and some of that stuff was really well done. There was nice little Easter eggs. There was really beautiful, themes of like the found family idea. There was also, I really, really enjoyed how Percy's this little, troublemaker, and he always thinks very low of himself because he doesn't always get good grades and he has trouble focusing. And you find out pretty early on that the whole point of Percy not being so good in regular school is because he's actually very gifted at, half-blood things. So reading ancient Greek and wielding a sword, and he's just a lot more talented at other things. And I thought that was actually a really nice message to kids, that even though you might not be good at something at the moment, there's something else that you're made to do. There's something that you're going to be better at doing. And I thought that was a really nice, subtle message for middle graders. I don't know if I should give a synopsis for this, but I guess if you don't know what it's about Percy Jackson, who discovers that he is the son of a mortal and Poseidon, and Poseidon's not supposed to sire any children. Him, Zeus, and Hades have decided that they are not going to be fathering any kids, but lo and behold, Greek gods can't keep it in their pants. So he ends up going to Camp Half-Blood, where other Half-Blood children are, kind of kept safe, and they're able to train and learn more about their godly parent. So anyways, like I said, I thought this was just a ton of fun. I thought the story was well-paced. Obviously, the whole idea of like a found family, and the characters were just super lovable, and it was just really, really cute. And because I went into it with a mentality knowing that it is for middle grade, it is not intended for the adult fantasy reader, things that might have bothered me, like maybe overly simplistic writing or super predictable plots, it's not made for me. It's not made for someone that has a bit more critical thinking. So overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. I absolutely do want to continue with the series, just as like a little palate cleanser in between maybe some heavier stuff if I read anything like that. And it was a really good palate cleanser in September. I kind of read in between some heavier fantasy and nonfiction, so it was nice to kind of break it up with such a classic, and I can absolutely see why everyone loves it so much now, and I am big dumb for not having picked it up sooner. So the next book I want to talk about is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. So this was for the prompt of a 5-star prediction, and unfortunately it was not a 5 stars for me, which I kind of figured. I knew I'd like it a lot, but it's kind of hard to get like a full enthusiastic 5 stars from me. So this was a 4-star technically, but it was kind of on the lower end. So this is about Sanchia, who is a thief. She is hired by someone mysterious to steal this artifact, and she usually doesn't care about what she steals, but she unknowingly stole an extremely, extremely powerful object. She lives in the city kind of reminiscent of Medici era Florence and Venice, sort of. That's kind of the vibes I get, because the city is run by 4 main merchant families who have their own sections of the city, and if you do not live within their sections, you are basically like gutter trash. There's these slums outside of those beautiful merchant areas, and that's where Sanchia is from. And the other notable thing about this world is that the magic system is like coding. So it is called scribing. And basically scriveners can go and attach these little metal plates to objects with sigils on them that tell them how to act. So for example, in the first opening scene, you see that there are a row of carriages, and all of the wheels have been scribed upon to make them think that they're always rolling down a hill, so that they keep moving forward. Even if they're rolling on flat ground, they think they're always rolling downhill, so they'll keep moving. So it's just these little additions to the world that kind of make it very interesting and almost technological, because coding is a system of logic, and so is scribing. However, the logic in this book was questionable, and it actually made me very mad at certain points, and that's why it took off a lot of the enjoyment for me, and that's why I got a lower score from on like the 5-star scale. So I don't want to say like all my grievances or some of my main ones. So let me know if you want me to maybe do like a spoiler and spoiler-free review like I did for Pet Sematary, where I go over like general thoughts, but I also mention like a little spoilery section at the end where I can get in depth with what I thought, because I feel like for something like this, it's important to know the actual spoilers to kind of properly air my grievances. But for example, like one of the characters that you follow a lot, his name is Dandalo, and he is he's the head of like the port's security ensemble. And once the theft happens, he's trying to go around and ask questions and figure out basically what's happening. But this motherfucker is the head of the whole like security, like the whole brigade of the port. And he's going to the most dangerous parts of town completely by himself, like without backup, and I'm just like, of course you're gonna get into trouble because there's no one there to help you out. And then it's very odd to me that this was a good idea. He's doing all this investigative work that puts him in all these sticky situations, and there's no one to back him up. I'm like, this doesn't seem logical to me, like at all. I don't know. And there's a lot of things with the magic system too. I don't think this will be considered a spoiler, but who knows. Everything is scribed logically, kind of like coding, right? So things have a very specific instruction. And people are able to, at some point, get around that. So for example, for the doors to these merchant houses, like strongholds, are scribed doors to only open to specific little charms that members carry. Someone manages to convince the door that swinging open the other way isn't actually opening, so they're allowed to open. And I'm like, do you not think that the scribers, in order to protect what's inside, would not have thought of something so fucking simple? It just seems like so nonsensical to me. It seems so overly obvious. I cannot describe why it makes me so angry, but it does. I will also say, because this was sold to me as like warring merchant families, I did not get as much warring merchant families as I wanted. I expected a lot more politics out of this. I will say I think the sequel will have that based on the ending. And the ending, that was a solid ending. Holy shit, that was amazing. I think the ending really turned it around for me. The ending just kind of brought it all together and made it very, very enticing to pick up Shorefall. So I definitely will be picking Shorefall up, but there's just some logic things in here that were questionable. And as for things like world building, you know, religion and gods were mentioned, but it wasn't developed on enough. The merchant families were obviously there, but I wanted more. It sounds like I'm just shitting on this book, and I actually really enjoyed it. I had a great time reading it. I thought that it was well written. It was action-packed and it was exciting, and I couldn't always guess what was gonna happen, and I was kept on my toes, and the magic system is unique enough, and I did like it, but I expected more. I will also say, if you're not a romance lover in your fantasy, this is a good one. This is a good one. The next book I want to talk about is The Black Tides of Heaven by Jiang. So this was for the prompt, a book with green on the cover, and as you can see, some lovely green. And this is an adult fantasy novella. The author themselves categorize it as silk punk. So it's set in an Asian-inspired world, but there are some steampunky elements. And the basic, it's so short, like I don't even know if you really need a synopsis, but if you really want one, you follow these twins that were given up to the monastery when they were quite young, and they are basically figuring out who they are and what their role is. One of them has these strangely prophetic powers, and it kind of throws in some disbalance into the world. And this was actually fucking unreal. So I really enjoy, obviously, picking up popular books that everyone talks about because it's fun to have people to talk about them with. But I have never seen anyone talk about this, and for some reason that intrigued me even more to pick this up. And this was just so special. That's like the best way I can describe it. The writing feels like a fairy tale, like you're listening to a legend being told to you. It's short enough. I obviously managed to read it in a few hours. It's under 230 pages, like 225. So it's quite short, quite easy to read. The writing just made it so gripping in terms of like the politics and the yearning and like the whole fairy tale sensation of it. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Obviously, this book is quite short. You're not going to get a ton of detail about the world, unfortunately. But this is part of a series of like standalone novellas. They say they're standalone, but I think they follow the same characters. At least a couple of them do. So I'm not really sure. Maybe it's like Sean Maguire's Wayward Children. I heard that one's kind of similar because some of the stories do follow the same characters. I haven't read those, so I wouldn't know. But I think this is kind of what it is. And I do find this world quite interesting. There are themes of, you know, magic versus technology. And you see these kind of tensions building between people. Like I said, the yearning was so good. This book was so gay. I loved it. It was so fucking cool. It's really special, and I really hope that people give it a shot, because I feel like it's absolutely like an underrated gem. I can't wait to pick the rest of them up. I will admit, one of the things that got me at the beginning was this cover. I think it's just absolutely stunning, but overall the whole story just captivated me. I thought it was just really, really breathtaking, and I really hope that people do pick this up. The next book I want to talk about is definitely one of my favorite books of the year. Like, straight up, I loved it, and that is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. Right, so I had an arc of this, so it was not on my Bookoplathon TBR. But I had an arc, and this book was coming out at the end of September, I think, or beginning of October. And I was like, I'd like to read it before it comes out. I don't know anything about it before I went in, and I was kind of just like, let's see what happens. And oh my god, it blew my fucking socks off. So this is a fantasy set in an Asian-inspired world. I believe it is Chinese-inspired. And this world in itself is quite interesting because it's made up of a ton of little islands. Like, these islands have their own like migrating patterns, and most of the islands' populations are like fishermen, and their lives revolve around the ocean or the sea, whatever they're in. And as far as what you're following is the story of two main characters and a few side characters. So one of the main characters is the Emperor's daughter, Lin. She is currently struggling to gain her father's acceptance because he has taken on a ward, an orphan, I believe, and he's training both of them at the same time to take over for him when he dies. And Lin feels as though her father is favoring the ward, and she's basically just fighting for his acceptance. And she also, you know, when she was younger, she got this sickness and she can't remember anything about herself before. And she just feels like she's dealing with like an identity crisis. And then you're also following a smuggler from one of like the other islands, who is not royalty. He's just a criminal. And part of the reason he smuggles is to kind of travel around and find out what happened to his wife, who disappeared 7 years ago. And along the way, he kind of gets swept up in, you know, these various plots to do with rebellion and all that fun stuff, right? The other thing that's so cool about this world is the magic. So, as the name suggests, bone shard magic is the type of magic in this world. And it's really interesting that I read this in the same month as Foundry Side, because both of them are very similar to coding. So, bone shard magic involves taking a bone shard from the back of every citizen's like ear area, and they're stored in the Imperial Palace's storerooms, and they are hopefully never going to be used. But if they are, what happens is that they are put into what do they call them? Contraption? No, that wasn't it. So the bone shards are inscribed with commands, and they are put into constructs. And constructs are basically fake animals. Like, they're taken and how do I describe this? Constructs are creatures created from parts of other animals. So they're not alive on their own without these bone shards. And once they have bone shards and commands inside of them, then they become either soldiers, or they become spies, or they become maybe like dock security, and they verify that everyone that docks at different islands is not a smuggler or something like that. So this magic system is very similar to Foundry Side in terms of like coding and like the logic involved behind it, and I thought it was super interesting. So I actually read Bone Shard Daughter first. So when I was reading Foundry Side, I was kind of unfortunately comparing it to that, and Bone Shard Daughter did it a lot better. The logic was just much more there, but the strength of Bone Shard Daughter was truly, truly in the writing and the characters. I was mesmerized. Like, the characters were absolutely top notch. Jovis, the smuggler, is this like morally gray, sweet baby angel. I just want nothing but the best for him. He's doing his fucking best. And then Jovis gets this little animal sidekick, which is usually a trope I really hate. I find it cringy a lot of the time. But this was actually so good. The sidekick Mephi was like the cutest little creature. I don't know what the hell he is. Some kind of sea dragon. Who knows? He was amazing. I loved him so much. He was so pure. And then he starts discovering how to talk, and just, oh my god. Oh my god. And then, like, the whole way that everything was linked together. I said this in my Goodreads review, which you can go check out. I have my Goodreads link down below. But the way everything was linked together, and I don't want anyone to come for me because I'm a fan of the series, but it felt like A Song of Ice and Fire, in that you get different perspectives all over the world, and you're able to kind of link them together for yourself and get a full idea of what's going on. You're given just enough to keep you guessing, but you're given enough to kind of like look at what some characters are doing. You're just like, oh no, please don't do it. And it's just so much fun. I literally sped through this book in 2 days. Like, I could not put it down. And it's like a normal sized fantasy book. Like, it's not small. And I just sped through it. I could not put it down. Every spare second I had, I wanted to read it because I was hooked. So hooked. And then you have a few more side characters. You have this like, you have this slave in some mango plantation that doesn't know how she got there. And you know, she's trying to kind of piece together the parts of her past. And then you also have this established female-female couple who are very different in ideologies, and you kind of see them clashing a little bit, and it all ties together so beautifully. And the writing, oh my god, everything is so deliberate, everything is so beautiful. Every word, you just taste all like the heartache and the tension, and the yearning is just dripping off the page, and every single character feels very intentional. Everything is just so beautiful, and just, oh my god, man. I don't know what it is about this book, but it's got a hold on me. I'm begging you, if you enjoy adult fantasy, please go pick it up. It is stunning. It is so well done, and I am kind of upset that I read it before it even came out, because now I have to wait extra long for the next one. I'm absolutely in love with it. I'm begging you all to go pick it up. This was like a definite, like, easy 5 out of 5 stars from like the first couple chapters for me. Like, I was sold. The last book that I finished in September was Kilo by Toby Muse. This is a nonfiction about the cocaine cartels in Colombia, basically starting from the beginning of the harvesting of the plant all the way through to the mules and everything in between. And this was for the prompt of read your most recent purchase, and I just purchased it on my Apple Books, so I was like, I'm gonna throw nonfiction in there, I'm gonna go for it. This was a surprise. This was a 5 out of 5 stars, and there are some faults to it, but the reason I just couldn't give it anything less was because of the impact it had. So like I said, you kind of follow like farmers that harvest the plant, and then you follow the workers in the jungles that process it, and then you also deal with some of the, are they military or are they police? You deal with some of the authorities that are trying to rip out the plants and stop the production from happening, but you also talk to some of the farmers that depend on it, and the seasonal workers who depend on cocaine for work and for money. And then you go to the towns that are impacted by cocaine. And it's just this very comprehensive view of the cocaine trade in Colombia. You even go as far as to follow Toby to a US Coast Guard boat that spends 3 months at sea, basically intercepting, cocaine smugglers that go through the ocean. And it's just the most eye-opening thing I have ever come across, because here's the thing. I'm a university student. I'm also a raver, and unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit to the stereotypes, there are a lot of drugs in both university and at festivals and raves. And I know people that do cocaine. I see it, unfortunately, quite often everywhere. And I just wish I could give every single one of these people this book. And it's not like from a holier than thou perspective. I wish I could hand this book and be like, I don't want to lecture you because I know how bad the drug is in terms of addiction and stuff. I know a ton of horror stories. It's a huge issue. I don't want to be there and preach to people, but I want them to read this book and just hear the impact of it, because it is fucking depressing. The book goes on about how it's created and how the politics behind it work. So not only do you get to see Toby, trampling through the jungle to go see the farms and the processing plants and talk to the people who depend on it, but you also get to talk to some of the townspeople who said, the government told us they'd help us. They never helped us. We turned to the only thing we could to make money to support our families, which was cocaine. And it's just so fucking depressing. And then you also see how cocaine is made and all the shit that they put in it. It's fucking disgusting. And then you also deal with, Toby walking around. He's a journalist. I guess I should have mentioned that. Whoops. Fuck. Toby is not just a author, he is a journalist, and he has a lot of experience with the Colombian cartels, but this was the most comprehensive account he's ever written of everything that he's seen. He specifically wanted to go from like A to Z of cocaine production, and it fucking worked. Like, it was so unbelievable to read. So he talks to, like I said, the authorities that are trying to go in and rip out these plants, and everyone, you feel the despair that everyone knows that it's fucking hopeless, because people in Europe and people in the US, the US is the biggest consumer of cocaine, that those people are going to keep buying it. And so they're going to just keep producing it, and the government doesn't care because the government is corrupt too. There was a town where 5 mayors in the last 7 years had been arrested for corruption. That's the story everywhere. And it's so disheartening to read about how the government failed its people and how cocaine was almost seen as a savior. Everyone's talking about how much better things are when people like Pablo Escobar were running things, because at least there was one person at the top and you knew the law of the land. When there's no one at the top, it's just anarchy, and it's just so fucking sad. It's fucking scary. It's absolutely insane how far-reaching it is and how wild it is that you buying a little baggie that you don't know the process of where it comes from trickles down all the way to this country that's desperately trying to dig themselves out of this hole. And it's just really freaking eye-opening. And I was really, really impressed at how much of an impact it had on me. Like, I was just absolutely blown away. And I think part of it probably does have to do with the fact that I know people that do it, and I know that it is a very, very normalized thing in both university and the electronic scene that I'm in. But it doesn't change the fact that your actions have such a further reaching impact. I think they call it the butterfly effect. And it's just mind-boggling to see it all laid out in front of you like this. So I think if you're at all interested in more info about cocaine cartels, I think this is a really, really comprehensive overview of everything that happens down there. I think that Toby did a really fucking good job at displaying just how desperate it is, just how heartbreaking it is, and just how much pain is caused by it. And again, this is not me trying to grandstand. I just wish more people knew about the reality of it, that's all. I don't know, this book for some reason just really got me. Read this fucking book, please. It was incredible. Right, so that's it for the books that I got to. There are a few from my Bookoplathon TBR that I did not manage to get to, so I'm going to quickly talk about those since, listen, I wanted to make a vlog for Bookopoly, but I felt like I was even struggling to find time to read, let alone talk about the stuff I was reading, so anyways, I'll quickly wrap those up now. So one of the other prompts I got was a book with fire on the cover of fiery colors, for which I tried to read Beloved by Toni Morrison. I don't think I was in the right mindset for this. I was really struggling with the reading, and every time I went to pick it back up, I could feel a reading slump coming on, so I stopped at about 30%. I told myself I had to like put it down. I cannot keep doing this right now. I do want to finish it, but yeah, it's just not something that I could do at the moment with schoolwork and stuff. I couldn't, my 3 brain cells were already working on school stuff. I just couldn't, steal one and put it towards this book as much as I did want to. Another prompt that I had was read a sequel that you've been meaning to get to, and I did want to read The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, the sequel to the 5th season. The 5th season I read in June, I think it is. I'll link the wrap-up where I talked about it up here. But anyways, so this was the sequel, and I did want to get to it. I've been meaning to, and I actually got 92 pages in, and then I could not remember a single thing I was reading. I just wasn't focused on it. I don't know if that's because I'd also read really good and different fantasies this month, but I just really wasn't able to get into this that much. And I feel like I might actually need to just put the series down, maybe read another one of her series. I do have her Dreamblood duology as a bind-up that I really want to read. And I might have to reread 5th season before I continue, because I do own this, and what's the Stone Sky, I think is the last one. And I do want to get to them, but her books are very much a struggle. They're very complex and beautifully written, but I just wasn't absorbing a single thing I was reading of this. So you might see it later on. I will not be picking this up for a little while, just to give myself a little break. But I do want to obviously read at some point still. That hasn't changed. And the only other one I didn't get to was the prompt to pick up, I think it was a chance card or community shelf. I think it was community shelf, and the prompt was to read from someone else's September TBR. And at that point, I had read from Angela from Blonde Books. She had We Are the Ants on her September TBR, and I started it. I just put it down at some point and never picked it back up. And that was the end of that. It was a book about a boy who gets abducted by aliens, and he gets told that he has the choice. He has a few months to decide, but he has the choice to press a button and save the world from being destroyed. And he's thinking about it because things are not going well for him, and his personal life's a bit of a mess, so he's trying to decide if he wants to press the button or not. And from what I got of it, I feel like I would have maybe benefited better reading this book in high school, because it is a young adult contemporary. But I don't know how much it's going to resonate with me now. I do want to read at some point, maybe if I am in the mood for a more absurdist contemporary. I don't know. I didn't really find myself caring too much. Not really a issue with the book as much as, like I said, I think I would have benefited from reading this book when I was in high school. I feel like that would have maybe appealed to me a little bit more, because I was going through similar issues that he was kind of facing with just figuring out identity and being by himself sort of thing. September was an odd month for me, not just for reading, but for everything. But that finally concludes my September wrap-up. Let me know if you've read any of these. If you participated in Becca's Bookoplathon, let me know how that went for you. I'm very curious to see how everyone fared, because Becca's Bookopoly is quite a little bitch, and I want to see if I was the only one that got completely screwed. But I managed to get through a few of the books. I'm pretty happy. I did love the board. I'd love to use the board again if I'm ever not sure what I want to read. Otherwise, give me a like, give me a subscribe, give me a follow on my social media, and I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya!